Welcome to the AgEmerge podcast, brought to you by Ag Solutions Network. Your farming challenges are unique, so your practices should be too. We're here to share emerging ideas, build connections, and provoke conversation.
Get ready to improve your soil, your crops, your livestock, and your family's livelihood. I'm your producer, Kim Chase.
And I'm your host, Monty Bottens. Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for listening. Today we're digging into the business side of ag, bringing you the stories, strategies, and insights that help your farm or ranch thrive. We're excited to welcome Dallas Mount to the podcast today. Dallas is the owner of Ranch Management Consultants, home of the Ranching for Profit School and the Executive Link program. Dallas has led the RMC since 2019 and worked with thousands of ranchers across North America, Australia, and the UK to position their business for economic profit and ecologic health. The Ranching for Profit School is a program that's been helping farmers and ranchers for over 40 years turn their passion into profit. From breaking down outdated management practices to unlocking strategies that actually work, Dallas shares some game-changing advice for successfully running their operation. It's a great conversation, so let's jump right in.
Welcome, everyone, to this episode of the AgEmerge podcast. Today, I'm joined by Dallas Mount. Dallas, welcome. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you, Monty. And, happy to be on. Excited for our conversation.
Well, I'm really looking forward to. And Dallas, you are probably best known for putting on the Ranching for Profit schools. And believe it or not, profit and ranching can go in the same sentence together. And that's your your whole goal of your organization. But I won't steal your thunder. Tell us your story and how you got started and what brought you to where you're at today.
Sure. Yeah. So I'm the third owner of this company. We've been our company, Ranch Management Consultants, has been around for 40 years. It was founded by a guy named Stan Parsons. Many of your listeners might know Alan Savory. Stan Parsons and Alan Savory started working together. Savory went on to do holistic management and really focus on ecology. Parsons went on farms and ranches with business management stuff and founded the Ranching for Profit School. Stan ran the company for about 20 years. A guy named Dave Pratt was one of my main mentors. He ran the company for about 20 years. So we're excited to carry that on, and we just finished our first 5 years running it, and so it's a lot of fun. We get to work with a lot of amazing clients and see farms and ranches from all over North America and even beyond. So
I really appreciate the work that you've done. Several friends of mine have been through Ranching for Profit schools and use your services and just talk about how valuable that is to really get a hold on what's going on. We'll dive into that a little bit, but I'm shocked. I did not know that. I didn't know Stan Parsons and Alan Savory were together on that, and Stan did more of the management, and we know what Alan's done on the grazing management. But that makes sense why that pulls through that. The adaptive grazing, holistic management grazing comes through in your schools. See, I didn't know that. Yeah. Fantastic.
Yeah, it's been one of the things Dave Pratt gave me when I bought the company was the old binder of Stan Parsons newsletters, and it was like a 4-inch thick thing of all the newsletters he wrote. Go back to clear into the 80s, and I think he wrote them every month and sent them out to his list. And it's amazing to see the evolution of their thinking at that time and as they put this stuff. And it really, to me, it's incredible today, 40 years from when they started, we're still using a lot of the principles those guys came up with and established, and they time tested at this point. So it's kind of neat to see the evolution of that.
And now they're getting really cool 40 years later. Isn't that exciting?
Right. Yeah, they were heretics 40 years ago, and now they're finally in vogue. So,
what is that? There's a quote that new information goes through 3 stages. First, it's discounted, and the secondly, it's radically opposed, and then the third, it's generally accepted as fact. So hopefully, we're getting to the third stage of dissemination of information. So. Dave Pratt,
right.
He did a lot, and I've learned a lot from the YouTube videos that he did when we were starting out, and then there's just great resources for ranchers out there, and you continue on with that. It's really neat. I would say, what do you think really caused this? What's the drive? You not to sound too corny, but you have a love for ranchers. That's all there is to know what they're doing. What what are some of the stories that motivate you to do what you do?
Yeah, that's boy. You know what? I guess it's connecting with the people that are out there that are doing it and seeing the struggles, right? Being a part of those struggles. Whether that's on the family side of it, right? Maybe we're working with a young couple that's frustrating situation, right? Looking to take on more responsibility in the place and maybe hitting some walls against that and not wanting to ruin those family relationships that are so important to them, but at the same time needing to grow their role in the business to create the life they want, and maybe getting to pull in alongside with them and be a part of them making progress in that, or maybe it's a family that's you know multi-generation on the place and is trying to keep it going. Maybe they've hit some financial struggles and need to get creative with how they're going to do things in order to move forward and pulling up alongside them and being a part of them making the changes that they need. And then another big group of clients that we work with are people that are new to it, right? And maybe they're coming from another career, maybe they're just fresh out of the gate and are like, hey, this is what I want to do, right? And how do we overcome some of the capital requirements to do it? How do we get creative about building a business from scratch? To me, it's the people that we get to interact with and being a part of their successes, being a part of their failures, right? And just seeing them thrive. And we all of us that are involved in this live in small town rural America, and these communities are super important to us. And when the businesses thrive, the communities thrive. So that's a big part of it as well.
Yeah, that's a really, really good point. So it all comes down to a proper accounting and knowing what's going where. In order, you can't manage what you can't measure, correct? So I find it interesting.
Yeah.
We have a direct to consumer business on our farm, and we have the farm enterprise too. So they're actually two separate business entities. Obviously, one shares resources with the other. You don't need two shops, you don't need two sets of land and things like that. But boy, accounting
Yeah.
between the two
Yeah.
entities, that gets a little dicey sometimes. And then when you're going direct to consumer, uh, you know, cow calf direct to consumer, there, boy, how many enterprises are in that value chain? And I
Boy.
know a lot of people listening to this
Oh man. Yeah.
podcast are like that. They're maybe row crop farmers that are interested in doing direct to consumer beef. They might be buying feeders, which that's easy. You know what you paid for them. You know what you feed them, and that's a little bit easier. But there's also people that are newer to this soil health movement that are starting with cow calf. Um, I think one of the best videos I watched, and I think Dave did this one, but it was talking about how to allocate those overheads. And just because you divide the overheads and put it further up on your income statement doesn't necessarily mean that's the right way to do it, because if you don't have the second enterprise, you still have that overhead. Um, Walk through that example for listeners, and I think a lot of us are taught in the standard business school, oh, we want to allocate all those overheads, and walk through the overhead scenario and why that's disastrous to do that.
Yeah. Well, but there's a lot inside there.
We'll start
So
we'll start with the
to
overheads,
to
then
maybe
we'll
put
get
it in different
deeper.
words. Okay. 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 All right. So most people, as you said, when you go through when you sit down and try to figure out your numbers, what they want to do with their overheads is they want to chop and sprinkle. Okay. So we want to take an overhead like a tractor, and I want to chop that thing up and allocate a little bit of the cost of that overhead to everything that we're doing. Right. And that's you can head down some really bad roads with doing that when you start making decisions from what your numbers are telling you. Right. So what we tell folks to do instead of chop and sprinkle is to lump and dump. Okay. So what we want you to do is take those overhead. We split up a business into what we call divisions. Now, some businesses are super simple and they only have one division, right? If I'm just a cow calf operation and I sell my calves at weaning, and that's the only thing that I really do on that whole business, then it's one division. It's a livestock division, right? One thing. If I'm I'm a cow calf business that also raises feed for my cows, maybe I'm making hay, silage, whatever it might be, then I'm a livestock division and I'm a farming division, right? So what I'm going to do with those overhead costs is we're going to assign overheads in one of three places. If that's the business, if I got two divisions, I've got three buckets I can put those overhead costs. They're either to that livestock division, to that farming division, or to the business as a whole. Okay. Now, our rule is once you've taken on an overhead, if it is a shared overhead, it becomes a business overhead. So we move it right to the bottom of the income statement and it shows up as a business overhead. All of your owner wages, housing, repairs and maintenance on buildings, base level of machines that you're going to have to keep the farm going are business overheads. Okay. In that example I just gave you with a livestock division and a farming division, the divisional overheads are overheads that would go away if I stopped that division, right? So my baler would be a right? If I've got a set of portable corrals for the cows, that could be a livestock division overhead. Okay. So in most farms, we have a big chunk of business overheads, and then we might have a few divisional overheads. Okay. But we don't take those things and say, well, I'm going to sprinkle 10% of this tractor over here, 10% of it over there, 10% of it over here. Because in reality, the cost of owning the tractor is choosing to have the tractor, right? Running it another 5 hours a year to do this doesn't change the cost of owning that tractor, right? It may change your fuel cost a little bit, but it doesn't. So what it does when you chop and sprinkle is it lets you justify more overheads than that business should support. Right. If you want to convince your wife you need to go buy a new skid steer, right? You can say, well, if I put 5% of it over here and 10% of it over here, and now all of a sudden I've justified that I need to own this thing, right? And so you can do it. If you look at that skid steer and say it's going to cost me $20,000 a year to own this skid steer in repairs, depreciation, taxes, insurance, licensing, right? Whatever those things are. Now all of a sudden you're like, oh, I better swallow pretty hard, right? Because $20,000 a year, that's just going to come right off my bottom line unless that thing's creating cash flow for me. So yeah, we see that we get a much more accurate picture when we do those overheads correctly. And it kind of slaps you in the face of where those numbers are.
Yeah, and then the problem is if you have 30% going to the one division and that division ceases, can Division Two then absorb 100%? That Division One wasn't offsetting. So I think that is kind of a trap that a farmer or a rancher can get into.
Yep. Yep. You can get some bad information if you've got those overhead costs allocated out. It can make you think, oh, I need to stop doing this. Well, those divisional overhead costs, if you've done them incorrectly and you've allocated overheads, those overhead costs do not go away when you stop that division. So you actually could end up making less money by stopping that. Yeah.
So let's talk about let's just pick on a cattle producer because first off, long time frame compared to poultry or swine. And then also there's two or three distinct stages within that the cattle's life span. So how many divisions there would you see, let's say in a direct to consumer cow calf to finish operation? So you have division one would be the cow calf producer, and when that calf is weaned, right, then it goes into division two, and then is it backgrounded until it's a fat, and then
Yeah.
that's division three, and then division four is in the freezer, and five's to the retail. How does that work?
Yeah. So I didn't give you all of our nomenclature here. So our division is our first break.
Okay.
Enterprise is the second break, right? So in that case, if you've got a cow calf if you've got a conception to consumption business, right? I'm gonna own that cow and put a bull with her, and I'm gonna own that thing all the way till I give it to a consumer on the plate, right? Then I've got two divisions. I've got my livestock division and I've got my direct marketing division, right? So those would be side of that livestock division. We could get really carried away and we could break that thing into all these little enterprises. We could have the cow calf, which produces a weaned calf. When that weaned calf is kept instead of sold, now I've got a backgrounding or a yearling operation, right? And now I'm going to own that weaned calf from, say, a 500-pound weaned calf to maybe a 7, 8, 900-pound weaned calf. And then I've got a finishing division. Maybe I'm or finishing enterprise. Sorry, I'm messing up my own terms. Um, Finishing enterprise where I'm going to take that 800 pound calf and I'm going to put another 200 pounds on it. And now it's slaughter ready. And then I move it. So I've got that animal that's ready to kill. I move it over to my marketing division. So my marketing division buys that animal at a slaughter ready weight, pays the processing costs of having that processed, pays the hauling it to market, going back and picking it up from the processor and bringing it back and hauling it to the consumer, storing it, putting it in a freezer, all the marketing costs of my websites, my, you know, all this time of doing that. And now I get in now when I have that laid out that way, I get to see where I create value. Okay. Am I creating value by owning the cows? Am I creating value by making them 800 pounders? Am I creating value by making them a finish ready animal? Or am I creating value by selling them? Okay. Now I'm gonna pick on you here a little bit. You said you've got this business, right? This cow conception to consumption. What we often find when we look at these is that there are segments of that oftentimes are huge losers for people that are doing it. Okay. I'll give you my bias on it. Take it for one person's opinion. We especially in the regen ag space of everybody should be direct marketing their stuff. Okay. I don't believe that for a minute, right? A lot of people in this farming business are really good at production, right? They're good at the production side of the business, at growing it and making it, right? Working on machines, whatever that is, and they're terrible marketers and they're terrible with people. And they don't get motivated by that, right? And yet we're told, well, if you want to be a small farmer or if you want to be a regen person, you need to market your stuff. Well, that's not true at all, right? That's like telling the guy running the bank that he should do his own automotive maintenance, right? It'd probably be terrible for him to go out there and try to spin a wrench, right? So we got to figure out where is our skill set based at, right? Or am I good marketing stuff? Am I good at selling stuff? If your marketing business is humming, you should probably be buying other people's finished ready animals and running a good marketing business, right? And quit getting distracted with owning these cows and with doing all this stuff out there, right? If I'm just looking at it from a business perspective. If you're great at producing high quality, whatever your pitch is, right? Grass fed beef, whatever that is, maybe that's what you should do and really figure out where it is. Now, when we get into that, we start looking at your business. Should you own the cow or is the cow taking resources that you could go get somewhere else, right? And like on a lot of these folks that are selling these grass finished animals, you actually break that business apart. Those cows are probably consuming 70% of the resources on that ranch. You can go buy weaned calves from anybody, right? I mean, yeah, everybody's calves are the top notch, right? But let's be real. There's calves selling every day that would fit your program, right? You're going to have people that raise them in the way you want them to be. So if you could all of a sudden free up 70% of your resources on your farm or ranch, now you can, if you're good at raising grass-fed beef, you can hit the multiplier on that thing by 3x, right? 4x, whatever that is. And instead of producing, 20 a year, maybe you're making 80 or 100 a year that are really what are the value drivers of your farm or ranch. So we're really big about diving in and diagnosing and saying what part of this business is working, what part of this business is just creating workload or distraction or causing us to have overheads and actually not creating value. So we're pretty big on that.
Right. And the talk about how, I mean, traditionally, um, that was great. So let's back up a few years and help me understand and how this has changed the dynamics within this industry. We had 2 or 3 years of drought, not just the normal drought, okay, but extreme drought in a lot of the cow calf areas. So then there was a lot of grain supplementation because you can haul in a grain cheaper than you can haul in a hay, and more energy density and those kind of things. So there's a lot of grain supplementation. So the total number of grass fed calves that would qualify kind of disappeared. Okay. Then the second part is that first of the year here, you can sell a weaned calf for $3.50 a pound live weight. Never seen prices like these. Well, I guess there was a blip a while ago. Hopefully, this is not just a blip this year. I'm happy for our cattle producers, but that's awful tempting to just go ahead and take those beautiful grass-fed genetics I've been developing for a long time to the auction barn and C'est la vie, right? So how have those marketing on the people that are doing grass fed direct to consumer, which is quite a bit of the regenerative crowd, how are those weather conditions and price conditions really affecting us? Because I had a conversation with Johnny Wood, and he's like, I can't. There's nothing out there, and how how talk about that, and then we'll follow up with what does that mean today and how we manage our business.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good and fair challenge, and I appreciate hearing that. To be honest, I don't know. I don't really follow a lot of the. Of course, I'm seeing where the markets are going and those kind of things, but some of those individual nuances that might be more regional as well. I don't really follow those things all that well. The this market price thing is really creating some interesting opportunities and interesting challenges. The so if let's say you're a client of ours and you're we're sitting there looking at your numbers and we're saying, okay, what is this business telling us? If we're looking at it with today's market prices, it's probably going to signal to your business to sell those calves at weaning time, right? And hey, let's just take this check now and let's go. So then we need to step back and look at this and say, okay, so what's the long-term vision of ownership here, right? What does ownership of this business want 3, 5, 10, 50 years down the line? Right. What are we trying to build something that's a long-term thing, right? Are we creating a reputation for this? Are we creating a legacy business, right? Something that we're creating. And it would be foolish to, chop off our arm in a year when market prices are just seeing a temporary spike in order to chase something that's not part of our long-term vision. So that absolutely always has to be a part of it. If we're looking at this business and we say, hey, wow, this thing's really stepping out as a loser in your business this year, then we need to stay, okay, is it going to be a loser next year as we forecast prices, as we forecast changes and things, right? There's oftentimes when we look at a farming or ranching business where I'm going to pick on like a haymaking business. We might look at somebody's haymaking business and say, oh my gosh, this thing's bloody, right? We're losing all kinds of money by making our own hay. Well, are we sitting here looking at it in a year when I can run down and buy a ton of hay for $70, right? And over the last 5 years, that's cost me $150, right? So we have to be cognizant of where we are in those long-term price cycles, what this person wants to do, kind of opportunities. So I guess that's kind of a long-winded way of saying it depends, right? There's a lot of moving parts on those things. Relationships, and especially in the livestock business, are really everybody's saying, well, calves are overvalued or cattle are high priced, right? Well, there's if you're selling them, what are you going to replace them with? Right. That's the interesting thing, right? If you want to be in the cattle business, yeah, cattle might be high priced, but if you sell it, what are you going to do? Right. That's the most important thing is where you're going to put that money. It's like saying, well, real estate's overvalued where I live. Okay, so sell your house. What are you going to do with that money? You got to have a place to live, right? You're going to go buy one. So it's more about the relationships of prices than the actual price. Right now, it certainly ups the capital requirement to get in, and there's some things around that. And you kind of mentioned these high prices are good. I actually see oftentimes high commodity prices as bad in lots of ways, right?
Sure.
When we had the last high cattle cycle in 2014, we saw a lot of farm and ranch businesses restructure that created economic catastrophes in the next few years, right? And I'm afraid that's what's going to happen right now with the livestock businesses. A guy who's been running 200 cows, right, is having a really good year this year, and all of a sudden he's going to say, "Oh, Junior, come home, be a part of this ranch," right? And we bring Junior home and we plop another house down on the place, and here in a couple years, there's no way that's going to support the now added overheads of the business, right? And it happened with corn, when corn did that, I remember Dr. David Cole, who you probably read his stuff, right? He shared all these overheads that we created when corn was $7 right before it went back down. And it creates disaster in these businesses. So I'm actually one of the ones that when we see high commodity prices, I always go, hold on, boys, because it's going to get bloody. And it always does, right?
Well, and as a corn farmer, we hurt a lot of our customers. They couldn't afford to buy it, and that's high prices cure high prices, and now low
That's right.
prices are going to cure low prices, I hope. So there we go.
Yep,
But
yep.
you know, back to this thing, and I apologize if taking advantage of our time together here, but I don't think I'm the
Yeah,
only one
this
with
is
this
good.
question. I'm sitting here with a cow herd, just because it kind of for the direct marketing and the calves, and it's cutesy, and that helps with the selling side, and maybe that's just an excuse I'm making up. But it's tough to. I know I need to sell the cow herd because economically, on our land values and our labor costs, they it doesn't make sense. But to get we're looking for an unvaccinated herd. That's become very important in the direct to consumer world. And all the grass fed, no antibiotics, all that jazz. Unvaccinated has been added to the list. Um, Finding the animals that we need is where. That's part of the question we run into. So, um,
Yeah,
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 it is a conundrum. It's just like farmland is really high price. We should sell. Well, what are you going to farm? Like you were saying,
yeah,
you got to have
yeah,
a place to live. So,
yeah,
um,
yeah. So what?
I'm sure
Oh,
you've coached people
yeah,
through the get rid of the cows thing or quit making your own hay. It's kind of like Dave Ramsey show, sell the truck. That's kind of the same answer over and over. But how do you coach
yeah.
people through that?
And so actually, what one of the things we like to say is we don't tell people to get rid of the cows. We don't tell people to stop making hay. We tell people do the dang numbers, right? Let's look at what the numbers are saying. Sometimes you look at a set of numbers, and if the hay business is killing it, right? And that's the thing that's working. The cows are working really well, right? How do we do more cows, right? So do the dang numbers. Let the numbers do the talking. Um, what we commonly see of folks that are doing the direct to consumer thing, especially on the cow side, conception to consumption, is when you're fairly small scale and you're starting out and you're developing a market, right? That makes some sense. At some point, you're going to hit a scale where you're gonna have to decide, okay, what piece of this business am I going to run, right? Should I be running cows? Should I be doing this? What pieces of it do I want? And like once you reach that certain scale, then you can start saying to people that are producing calves in your area, look, I've developed a market for this type of calf with this type of messaging that meets these parameters. If you guys fit our value system, if you believe in this, then here's the premium that we're offering for your calves. Do you want to produce them? Right. And start developing that network of producers at that. And I can the folks that are buying from you want to see those cows in your place. Great, right? We got to make sure our marketing message is sincere and that it's honest. But that doesn't mean all the calves need to come from cows that are on your place, right? If you've got these other producers that are fitting it, and that's what we commonly see of folks that grow into that direct marketing space or direct to consumer pieces, they start to specialize and they start to figure out what it is that they do.
The AgEmerge podcast is brought to you by Ag Solutions Network. The ASN team is hands on, digging in, and invested in regenerative agriculture. Along with the proper plant nutrition and biologicals to boost your soil microbiome, we provide the ideas and implementation guidance to support you on your soil health journey. So stop farming the same way and contact Ag Solutions Network today at asn.farm.
So, when you're doing all of the direct expenses on uh, raising feed fat cattle that you're going to then sell into the direct to consumer, you're basically bundling up all of the labor costs, all of the land costs, rent, or maybe there was cover crop seeded in order to feed these animals that would go to that enterprise, um, to where when that animal then leaves the farm and that divisional or sorry, enterprise cost would then
Enterprise. Yep.
be set at a certain margin then for the fat cattle division to wind up, or would it be at market prices? Because you'd probably be the equivalent of opportunity cost, correct?
Correct. Yeah. So when we do a gross margin analysis, which is what we teach to do at our school, is we look at let's take the fat cattle piece as an example. Okay. The first question we ask is what's the value that I created in this enterprise? Okay. So if I took 800-pound weaned steer, and I turned it into an 1,100-pound kill ready grass finished animal. Okay. Then I've taken I'm just going to pull some numbers out of the air just to create the sake of it. I've taken a $2,000 steer and I've turned him into a $3,000 steer. Okay. So I've created $1,000 worth of value. So my gross product, the value I created was $3,000. I'm sorry, it was $1,000. Move it from $2,000 to $3,000. So my gross product is 1,000. And now I sit back and I say, okay, what are the direct costs? So every time I run one more steer, this cost goes up by one. What are the direct costs that I can attribute to turning that 8 weight into a 1,000 pounder? So it would be things like feed, vet, health costs, any of those kind of things that fit that bill. It probably wouldn't be my labor, right? My labor is probably the same if I'm doing 10 of these things or 40 of these things, right? It's going to take me 20 minutes a day, right? Whatever the number is. So I wouldn't put my labor in the direct cost. So the direct costs, like let's say in this case we had $1,000 of gross product. Let's say we added up our feed, vet, some of those things, and there was $300 in there. So then I created a $700 margin. So that $700 is what goes to service the overheads. Okay, so it falls down the income statement to service those overheads. So we're pretty strong on this gross margin analysis. It's not something that's commonly done in agriculture. For some reason in agriculture, we've trained people so heavily to talk about production levels instead of margin levels, right? When you get together with people and talk at the end of the year, everybody's going to say, well, what'd your calves wean off at, right? What price did you get for those calves, right? That's what everybody wants to share. Oh, I weaned 600-pound calves this year and I got $3 for them,
And you know
you know,
why?
and
It's easy.
because it's
I know how many I know how many bushels per acre I got, and then
yeah,
if you talk to the same guy, it goes up 10 bushels a month through the
yeah,
calf. But anyway, and the calves probably
right,
gain
right,
10 pounds, every time you
yeah,
thing. But
right.
so that's
But
easy,
the
right? I mean, the
yeah,
profitability
yeah.
portion or the margin portion is hard.
Yeah. Well, it it is until you learn how to do it, and that's just the way you start thinking, right? And that's the way you should start tuning your head. But we get so stinking caught up in this production stuff, and we forget the costs that go into it. I mean, if I'm sitting there bragging, "Oh, I weaned a 600-pound steer this year," well, what'd you make on those steers? Well, I lost $200 for every one that I made, right? Well, then who the hell cares if I made a 600-pound steer, right? I'm losing the game, right? So instead of talking about metrics that have no correlation to profitability and production, and this is actually really in I look at a lot of livestock business. In livestock businesses, production has no correlation with profitability, right? Zero, zero. You take the most
Hold it.
productive ranches.
In
Yeah, yeah,
any business, yield or productivity has no correlation to profit. That's you're not exclusive in
yeah,
livestock, right? And commodity
yeah,
growers,
right,
almond growers, tomato growers, it don't
yeah,
matter how many tons, pounds,
yeah,
bushels you got. Who
yeah.
cares?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Anyway, but
Yep.
I mean,
You're singing my tune, man, because I get so excited about this but that's, when you go to the coffee shop, that's all anybody wants to talk about because you're right. It's easy. It's big belt buckle stuff, it's well, my hat's bigger than yours kind of stuff. Well, who the hell cares if your business is failing? So I'll get off my soapbox. You got me
no,
going.
no,
You got me
that's a
excited.
soapbox that okay, how do we change that? How do we change that in the ag community to where we focus on what's really important? How does that happen instead of just watching people go out of business because the bank won't loan to them anymore? I mean, that we don't want to see it happen to people. How do we, people are buying 280 bushel corn for the bragging rights of that. They're trading dollar for dollar on the probably the last 20 30 bushel. I mean, on a long-term basis, they've invested so much to get that. Or, I apologize for being I'm a corn first, cow come lately kind of guy. So, how does
Yeah.
that change, you think, over time?
I think you're gonna get again one man's opinion here. If we start to demand and expect competency in how our businesses are run and managed, it it will start to change. If we stop putting up with incompetent ownership and management of these agricultural businesses, it will start to change. And I unfortunately I think that's what a lot of these when you're when your cousin Sal is running the place and has been for the last 20 years, it's really hard to tell cousin Sal it's time to actually start producing results, right? We've put up with this crappy management for far too long. Your results are terrible. If you're going to continue to run this multi-million dollar asset of mine, you need to start producing some results, right? And I think when we start changing that attitude of, this idea of we're all owed a job because we're born into a family that does this. I mean, that's a bunch of crap, right? Let's put people on these farms and ranches that are actually competent business leaders. Let's help develop competency in the incoming generation instead of just, send them off for to learn a bunch of stuff that they're probably never going to use anyway, and then bring them back home and say, okay, it's yours now. Just keep doing it the way Dad did it, right? And that to me is, yeah. You're going to get me in trouble here.
No,
You
no,
got me
that
going.
hey, that's no, the reality is that's what we need to
Yeah,
hear. Sometimes the things that you you know, need to hear you don't like to hear. And but there's a lot of things that we're good at as farmers or as ranchers, in picking out genetics and doing our best to produce whatever it is in the best way possible and fixing anything. I mean, MacGyver's got nothing on us, so we can do those things. But boy, when it comes to taking a hard look at what you're passionate about, maybe that, oh, I love them cows, or gee, I really like this crop or whatever, and saying the dollars are telling us no, having the fortitude to change is a really hard, right?
yep,
So
yep. You're absolutely right.
talking about then, I really like the ranching for profit school model in how you try to, okay, create the competency essentially, and then I don't want to say if I enforce or encourage the competency through your follow-on groups. Walk through that model and why that's been so effective for ranchers to make long-term changes in their business.
Sure. Yeah. So we bring folks to it for a long time. It's been a 7 day school. We've just refined it down to a 5 day school. So moving forward here, we're going to be a 5 day ranching for profit school. Over those 5 days, we it's like getting in an MBA in agriculture, right? We're all about teaching business management skills, leadership skills through those 5 days. We develop a shared language through that of looking at the numbers, some of the things that we've been talking about here, and we develop a common experience going through that school, right, where everybody's kind of been through that, and now we've shared that. Once folks go through that school, some of them go on to implement on their own. That's fine if you're able to do that. But what we often find is all of us need some kind of a peer group to hold us accountable and to look inside of what we're doing and challenge it. So we've created that peer group. We call that Executive Link. We take graduates of Ranching for Profit. We put them on peer advisory boards. So when a board is formed, it's geographically diverse. You're not put with a peer that's in the same county as you, right? They're generally several hundred miles apart. It's operationally diverse, right? We don't want all cow-calf producers sitting on a board together, right? They're not going to be creative enough in their thinking to help solve each other's problems. So we get geographically, operational, scale, age, diversity, all these kind of things. Put them together on a board. When we form those boards generally stay together for 3 to 5 years. So for 3 to 5 years, you're meeting with these same folks who you understand their businesses, they understand yours. You meet 3 times a year. Every time you meet, you're expected to bring your financials, bring your projections for the coming year, put your balance sheet on the table, talk about challenges that maybe you're having in the family, if your family is working together. So a lot of things that are typically considered taboo to discuss in agriculture, we talk about them and we hit them head on. And so every time you meet, you come up with an action plan for, okay, when we come back through have accomplished in your business, right? And you write those things down. We put them on the board. Next time we meet together 3 months, the first thing that goes on that board is that action plan. So, okay, here's the things you said you were going to do. Tell us what you did, right? And so you're held accountable to report against those things. So it's really just applying business, good business skills and principles to farming and ranching. That's really what we're about.
So your executive links getting together every quarter.
every quarter, 3 times a year.
Okay.
Yeah, we find that tends to work pretty well. Yeah.
Okay. Very good. And then,
Yeah.
what's some of the results that you can share without names and such? But what are some of the things that you've kind of been proudest of that's coming out of those schools and link programs, peer groups?
We had a business last year that went from I'm trying to get these numbers right. I think they were a direct marketing business. They were doing about 600K a year gross revenue, and now they're pushing 3 million within 3 years. That was their move. Um, sometimes it's financial, sometimes it's economics, sometimes it's relationships, sometimes it's business expansion. So it really depends on that particular group what it is. Some of the other ones that are just really kind of pull at my heartstrings are you get a couple that comes into EL, maybe they're late 30s, early 40s, and really in a frustrating situation with whatever the family ownership structure is, and with working with that board within a few years' time, they're able to break through that and to really establish clarity on ownership, clarity on responsibility, to get some autonomy for how they can manage that business, and bang, that place is off and running, right? And that one's really fun to be a part of, is when you have a family coming in that just really feels stuck, and there's a lot of kind of negative energy with that, and within a few years they've pushed through that. Sometimes it's there's some young people in the EL group that are starting up something on their own, and taking a big risk with some capital, taking some big swings, and sometimes they miss, right? And now you've got maybe you're in a negative net worth position, right? And now you've got somebody that's walking in the door saying, all right, guys, if I sold everything today, I'd still owe $1 million, right? And you kind of pull up alongside of them and you dig your way out of the thing, right? And okay, so what are we going to do next, right? And start coming along those. Uh, those are some of the ones that are probably closest to my heart, are kind of those ones. Yeah.
Yeah. So once they go through the peer group or such, is there a follow on after that, or do they become leaders of other things, or that's kind of, hey, their direction is set and away they go?
Yeah, that's generally so we've had some businesses that have been a part of our EL program for going on 20 years. Sometimes they join EL for a 5 year stint, and then they step out for 3 to 5 years, and then things change in their business. Maybe a son or daughter comes home, maybe something changes. Think again, let's rejoin, and then they go through that for a while. Sometimes the people coming out of EL, we hire them back as facilitators, so then they sit with those peer groups. So every EL group that's meeting, somebody from our organization meets with them and helps guide the meeting process, and so sometimes they come back and work with us in that facilitator role. So,
Excellent. So obviously, I'm most aware of the groups in the Ranching for Profit School. Tell us about the rest of your business. I mean, you do direct consulting and those kind of things too, I suppose.
actually, very little. Ranch management consultants is a terrible name for our business because we don't do much consulting. So what we found is, I used to do more one-on-one consulting than I do now. What we found is, if you hire me to come to your farm or ranch, and I sit down and I go through your numbers with you, you're going to get one person's opinion on that day. And sometimes that's not very useful for where your business needs to go over time. I find that we're able to better serve businesses through that peer network, right? When you're a part of an EL group, you're going to get five other business leaders' opinion on where your business should go. And it's going to be an evolving thing, because they're going to be part of you while you're in the middle of winter, while you're in summer, when you're in high price periods, while you're in low price periods, right? And getting a more holistic picture of your situation, understanding your mission and vision, you're going to get better opinions. So when people call me and try to hire me to come do ranch consulting with them, I generally tell them, I think you'd get a better product, and it'd probably be cheaper if you went this other way. So I'm actually kind of trying to talk people out of hiring us to come do that. every now and then we go and work with a family that's working through something challenging. If they need some additional stuff on something like that, we'll come in and help them through that. Our main business is those two things that you mentioned: the Ranching for Profit School, the Executive Link program. We get a lot of invitations to come to organizations and speak for events that are going on, whether it's like a cattlemen's meeting or a soil health conference or things like that, to do kind of short form, um, you know, presentations. And really, the point of those is just to raise knowledge and awareness of, hey, there's another way to do it out there than just this, old, you know, put your head down and work harder mentality, which, right? Yeah. So yeah, that's kind of who we are in a nutshell. You're talking to one of six instructors of the Ranching for Profit School, so we've got a pretty awesome team. A lot of our instructors are in the business themselves. So we're not just reading textbooks about it. We're out there doing it alongside with you guys. But yeah, it's been a lot of fun. And our name is Ranching for Profit. We've talked about changing that name to be more broadly application in other areas of agriculture. But we've decided, ranchings really are the most of our clients that we work with. But what we do is we teach business management skills for people in ag. The widget that we use is the cow, and we talk a lot about grass, but the principles that we're talking apply no matter what the business. So if you don't have a cow, that doesn't mean that you're not welcome to come, right? We'd love, if you want to come learn about running a farm or ranch business, we'd love to have you be a part of it. So
Yeah, that tuition would be higher now if you're required to purchase a cow before you came because the cow prices have gone up.
right.
So you can't have that requirement though. But
Cold cows count.
okay, yeah, buy your own burger. And but uh, now help me out, and I apologize. Is there a similar format in a row crop type scenario or farming scenario? I know there's different ones. You know, there's kind of involved like TPAP. There's less involved like farm business, farm management, where I think that's more on one. But I think what's unique, the TPAP does have some follow-on peer things afterwards, but I don't think it's as organized as what you're doing and as often as what you're doing. What,
Yeah.
what am I missing? What other are out there for more of the, like you said, the widgets are just different, right? But
Yep. Yep.
that
The widgets
talking
are different.
talking corn instead of talking cow sometimes gets guys going. But is there
Yeah.
something out there?
Yeah. I don't know of it. There's a lot of good programs out there, and I've heard great thing. A lot of our clients have been through TPAP and say wonderful things about that. Dick Whitman works with them on their economics piece, and that meshes very well with the way we look at things. I don't know of a program like ours for row crop farming that overlaps that well. We've thought about making that transition, and adding a piece of our company that does that. Right now we're scrambling like heck to just keep up with our demand, with what we're doing.
Yeah.
But we are seeing more, and I think the regen ag movement is bringing that somewhat. We're seeing more and more traditional corn and bean farmers that are starting to come to us. Now part of that is because they're starting to incorporate livestock, right? And so they're doing that. But what they tell us when they come to us is they said, you know what, I thought I needed to wait till I had cows to come to this thing. And they said I should have come 10 years ago because the stuff you guys are teaching overlays just perfectly with it. So yeah, I'd love to see somebody spring up and start offering that for the more traditional row crop farmer folks.
But in the meantime, I notice all these ranching for profit schools are in, Montana, Nebraska, South Dakota. We need you to get you into the corn belt, for all these corn farmers that have gone crazy and got some livestock, right?
Right, right. We've done a few schools out there, and our attendance is a little less than what we like. And so,
Yep.
when we
Sense.
can fill schools in the West, that's kind of what we tend to do is
Yep.
just stay here. Um, yeah. So anyway, if somebody wants to come to a school, jump on an air car, get to a school. If driving 10 hours or buying a $500 plane ticket is the difference between coming to a school or not, you probably aren't committed to come enough to come anyway. So just don't bother, right? If that's I kind of everybody says, I was just out in North Dakota, central North Dakota last week, and they were all, well, when are you going to come to a school in central North Dakota? And my answer was, I'm not. Get over it. come to come to a school somewhere else, and you're going to have a better experience. The people who have the worst experience at a ranching for profit school are the people who go to a school within about 50 miles of their house. Because what do they tend to do when school lets out, when class is done in the evening? If you're 50 miles from home, you're going to get in your vehicle and you're going to go home and sleep in your own bed, right? And then what are you going to do in the first thing in the morning when you wake up? You're going to go outside and you're going to try to go do this and that.
Mhm.
And so you're going to be the last one to arrive in the morning. You're going to be the first one to leave in the afternoon. You're going to miss out on all the networking and the conversations that happen, in the evening time, which is sometimes some of the best of it. So,
Great point. Now, what
yeah,
about people that are like, "Oh, I'm not sure I'm ready to go there. I don't have all the information put together the way I'd like," and those kind of things that would maybe hold them back from coming. It's like,
yeah,
"Gee, I'd have to take my shoebox and organize it before I went," right? So, what
yeah,
about
yeah.
those those folks? How do you encourage them to
So,
be ready enough to come to a school?
yeah, so those folks are going to be in the majority at the school, right? That's in the position where most of the folks that are coming to our program are, is they feel like they're inept, right? Like they're not where they should be in terms of their management. So there are a few people that I would tend to the ranching for profit school. If some of those folks that are like fresh out of college, or maybe they you know year one, year two on the farm, right? It's good to get some life experience under your belt before you come to ranching for profit, right? The things that we talk about at ranching for profit are much more meaningful when you've lost $50,000, right? That's a very good learning experience, right? So
Tuition.
yeah, it's tuition, right? So it's nice to have some of that life experience under your belt. Once you've had some good lumps and bumps along the way, and you feel like, hey, all right, I'm ready to the next level. You're at a good place to come. Okay. I don't care how much formal education you've had. If you've had, none, or if you've got a PhD, you're going to get some stuff out of ranching for profit. And a lot of it's going to be from the network and the environment that we create when we do it. If it's a good way to dip your toe into it. You mentioned you've watched the YouTube videos, right? Go on our YouTube channel, dive into that rabbit hole. We've got a couple of books on our website that people can order. There's a book on our website called The Turnaround, and it's the story of a ranch family that took it from a mismanaged pile of assets and actually started to apply the business principles and to create a healthy business from it. That book is a really good backdrop to what we talk about at Ranching for Profit, and it really kind of helps people get an idea of, okay, this is what they're going to cover. What one of the things we appreciate in class is everybody's where they're at, right? When people roll up to class, if you don't know what a balance sheet is, great. We're going to start with you right there, right? Everybody's where they're at. If you've been doing ag accounting for 30 years, great. You're going to have something to offer. But guess what? When it comes to this other topic over here, you're not going to know beans, right? This person that doesn't know what a balance sheet is going to be teaching you how to do this other piece, right? So everybody's where they're at. We try to create a real comfortable environment where, we're not judging anybody. Just look, we're all here to make ourselves better. So
And the reality is that person with the 30 years of experience might have some unlearning to do. And sometimes unlearning is harder than learning, right? So,
yes, yes, you're absolutely right.
all right. So this winter,
Yeah.
are there still openings in any classes? I know a lot of them were filling up.
Yeah, we're right in the middle of our delivery season right now. We've got a class that starts here in a couple days in Wheatland. After that class, we'll be going to Rapid City, South Dakota, towards the end of January. After that, we'll be going to Saskatoon, Saskatchewan. So if your wife wants a winter retreat the first week of February in Saskatoon, Saskatchewan, what better treat could you give her than that?
I took her to
Um,
see
we
I took her to see Dwayne Beck and Gabe Brown and Jay Fuhrer for her birthday. I mean, what more
Hey,
could you want to
there you
do in
go.
August than to go to Pierre and Bismarck? I mean, you get both of
That's
those.
right. Way to go.
I
Yeah.
mean, sunny Saskatchewan in the winter sounds great
Yeah.
to me. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. But we do about 14 schools a year, 12 to 14 schools a year. They're spread out mostly West Mississippi. We'll be in Billings, Montana in June. We'll be in Oklahoma City in April. We're just in the process of scheduling a Reno Nevada school in September. The curriculum we cover at the school is exactly the same, no matter where the location. So don't worry about geography for what we're going to talk about. Yeah, and it really doesn't matter where you come to school. It's more about people just deciding to make the commitment, looking down, looking at their calendar, and saying, "Hey, we're gonna make this work," and booking in, and away you go. We've been going to the UK the last couple years, and so that would be a really fun trip to say, "Hey, let's go over to England and go to Ranching for Profit while we're there."
So your executive link, you don't place them necessarily with people who are in the Billings group, right? You'll mix and match different groups.
Sometimes it works that way. Yeah, usually it's a
Yeah.
mix and match. Yeah. So usually when we have openings on a board, or we're creating a new board, and that's where we put those together. Yep.
Well, ranchingforprofit.com is the website to go to, and check out all of their schools that they have coming up, and get plugged in. I've looked at it. I think it's a good cost investment. I know there's you probably have some stats on how quickly it pays for itself, but it's definitely worth it to make yourself feel better and control your business. I think that's probably the ultimate feeling you get out of it, is that you better understanding, and you feel more in control, and you feel more like that you can make a difference in the outcome of the future, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that, Monty. Yeah. It's it's pretty amazing. This idea that my business is dependent on weather and markets. I mean, if that's what your business is dependent on, you're in a tough spot. It's your business is dependent on you and the decisions that you make. So let's put you in the driver's seat of that and give you some tools to make good decisions.
But it's easier to blame the weather. And it don't hurt your feelings as much. Yeah,
Makes
cross
better
those
coffee
fingers and hope for the
shop talk.
best.
Yeah.
All right.
Right.
Well, Dallas, enjoy your upcoming schools, and I've been looking for a period of time. I hope schedules work out to attend personally. And thank you for all that you're doing to encourage viability and vitality. Because what's one thing to stay in business, right? Okay, that's survivalism, which is important. But step two is to be a vital business, one that's profiting and flourishing, because then you can have more of an impact on your local community. You can put more in the plate on Sundays. That's always good. You
Yeah.
There's lots of benefits to having a profitable business, and you can bring more people into your business and scale it to make an even larger impact. So,
Yep. Yep.
thanks
You're
for what
speaking
you
my
do to
language, man.
educate
I love
people.
it.
All
Yeah.
right.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Take care.
All right. Take care, Dallas.
What a great conversation with Dallas. From the power of doing the dang numbers to rethinking the way we manage overhead and structure our businesses, there's so much here that every farmer and rancher can take home today. Whether you're raising cattle, running row crops, or managing a diversified farm, these insights and concepts go far beyond the ranch gate. So be sure to subscribe to the AgEmerge podcast for more great content. And if you'd like to learn more about what we're doing, you can visit our website at asn.farm. And there you can click on links to follow us on Facebook, X, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. There's a lot of great things happening and always something to learn. Thanks for listening.